and filter connectable items. For this lesson, for the topic of modeling concepts, we'll talk about connectors. After completing this lesson, you should be able to do the following: explain what connectors are and when they can be used, create and add connectors to the configurator model, and filter connectable items. This diagram shows that connectors are a type of a supplemental structure that you can add to a configurator model. Connectors can be used when the configuration of a product requires you to include an item that isn't part of the product structure. As an example, if you're configuring an elliptical exercise machine, you might want additional accessories or related exercise equipment as part of the order, although those items are not necessarily part of the elliptical machine model definition. So connectors provide the means for adding related items that sit outside the model's item structure to a configuration. Products are often configured from items in a bill of material that are related by specific rules to create a defined and limited model structure, but if you need to configure products that depend on items that aren't part of a single model structure, you might want to use connectors. This table shows you examples of models for which you might use connectors to include separate but related items in the configuration of the model. In the chart, notice the relationship between the configurator model part, the related items that are connected to the model, and whether or not they require restrictions or are completely open depending on the connections that you need. You create connectors in a way that's mostly similar to creating other supplemental structure. You define a connector in the model structure with a target that's an item class. So before you create a connector, you must import the item class and its items that you want to connect to. If we take a look at the example of an elliptical exercise machine, the users may be interested in ordering related add-ons to use with the elliptical machine. In this example, we would need to import first the related items under the fitness and health item class. This would include things like the accessory tray, heart rate monitor, strength equipment bundle, and so on. You can pause the video and take a moment to review the general steps taken to import items that are associated with an item class. Then resume play when you're ready to continue. Once you have imported the items from the intended target item class, then you'll add connectors to the model structure similar to the way that you add other supplemental structure. To create connectors on models, here's the high-level steps. First, in a workspace that you have locked, open up a model for editing. Then, on the Edit Configurator Model page, select the root node of the model. Then, select Create Connector. Note, you can only create connectors on the root node itself. Then, in the Create Connectors dialog box, you'll select a value for the target of the specified target type. Here, you'll search for and select the target item class. Then, enter the values for the minimum connections and maximum connections to determine the number of instances of this connection that may be added at runtime. These fields represent the minimum and maximum number of actual related items which can be added to a configuration. Then, you'll enter the values for minimum quantity and maximum quantity to determine the sum quantity of connected items that may be added at runtime through the connector. Again, these fields represent the minimum and maximum sum quantity of all the related items added at runtime to configuration. Then finally, you'll click OK. The target item class for a connector might contain thousands of items which could adversely affect performance when loading the connector set of connectable items at runtime. To resolve this, you can define a filtered set of connectable items for connector to reduce that performance impact. Connectable items are items that are eligible for inclusion as part of a configuration which are driven by rules, but are outside of the model's item structure as defined in the Product Information Management work area. Implementing a connector filter is optional and is particularly effective when you have thousands of items associated to the target item class on your connector definition and have a requirement to add only a subset of those items to your final configuration. For more information on how to define connectable items, please refer to the Modeling Configurations for SEM User Guide. For your convenience, there's a reference and a link in your student guide on this slide's page notes. To summarize, in this topic, we discussed the following concepts: